Good morning. Hello, everyone. Jeez Louise. It's been a day. Welcome to Sunday Morning Coffee with Karen, episode 72, Be the Impossible. So, being the impossible. This is really going to be talking a lot about the dream that's on your heart, how you can show up really bold and bright and just stop trying to downplay your genius, and how to why it's so important to have a dream that seems impossible so that all of the little steps in between can be the fun of the journey. I'm going to just fix my lighting really quick. Okay. Oh, so much better. Okay. So, hello everyone. So I just got last week we were talking a lot about being the dragon, right? Calling all dragons. How do you show up as that super conscious leader? How do you be the leading role of your life and show up as the global luminary that you were born to become in your industry, in your family, in your community? Really truly bringing these values of you don't have to be defined by your past, and you can change your story, and you can truly go after those crazy wild visions, knowing that they're possible because you remember you've woken up to the fact that you're living a dream right now. You've woken up to the fact that you are living the impossible life. That if you were to look at your life a few years ago, you're like, how is this my life now? How, like, what? And you start to draw. I've taught you guys synchronicity maps before, how you start lining up how different synchronicities have lined up in your life. Sometimes you start to do that practice and you're like, it's just been going on forever. And you realize that it's if it's that orchestrated, that if you hadn't met this person, then this wouldn't have happened, and then this wouldn't have happened, and that. And really, you can keep doing that all the way back through your entire life. When are you going to stand up and own the fact that you are the one orchestrating your life? You are the author of your story as well as the main character in it. Sometimes you're a villain in others' stories. Sometimes you're the hero. Sometimes you're the lover. Sometimes you're the mother. You play different roles in other people's stories as well, but you are the leading role of your own story because you're the one that is the grand architect. You created your entire life, this entire existence. And the next time around, you might be like, you know what? I didn't really like this part. Or this was amazing. And I will absolutely always have some sort of adventure like skydiving or whatever, right? You are an infinite being. You are a fractal of the creator, here manifest in form, creating your own life. I've been saying this for months, for at least 2 years at this point. This morning I woke up and there was a memory on my Facebook, and it was me 3 years ago. And I weighed probably about 200 pounds. I was super depressed. Like, you could, the whole room was gray. The room was literally gray. I was wearing a gray t-shirt, like up to here that was bigger. I was still nursing then. I was working as a in a network marketing company at the time. So I had gone to a convention, my first ever convention, where I had seen all these people who had this entrepreneurial drive. And that's when I really started thinking, wow, I could make an impact. I could start creating on a global level. Look at this business. It's here located in Utah. And I started to just see a little spark, right? Just a tiny little inkling of a spark of what could be possible in my life if I stayed committed to not only improving my own personal development and spiritual growth, and how I could shift and change in my present so that I could rewrite the past and just be no longer attached to the past, but also how can I start looking at those most impossible dreams? It would be unfathomable. The my current monthly income would be unfathomable to that version of me. Okay? There's no way. I wasn't even ever able to sell anything in that network marketing because it wasn't mine, is what I realized. Now I have clients who are, on 20, $30,000 a month retainers. You can, I never, for me, I was a suburban housewife 3 years ago, just trying to figure out how to move myself through the world depressed, suicidal, had fibromyalgia, degenerative arthritis, all of these things that were weighing me down. And I was just a victim. Everything was the fault of the man, everything was someone else's fault. And as soon as I was able to be like, you know what? No, I have chosen every single one of these circumstances. And the next time I have the opportunity to see this test in front of me, to see this in front of me, instead of letting it crumble me, instead of it being something that really frustrates me and I say, oh, how am I still here? I'm going to realize that it's a vibration coming back at me from past choices. Okay. So before we dive much deeper into this, let's light our candle and set our intention. So lighting the candle with the intention that we just really get clear on the communication between us and our grand architect, the version of us who planned all this out, who's just dreaming right now. And this dream seems impossible. This was the most wild, crazy version of existence that you could come up with right now, and owning that and being that big and that bright. And knowing that we are supported, because that's if you're not in a place that you feel supported, it's because you're still learning the lesson of what it's like to feel supported. Especially in this day and age, in this era, to allow that support, to have the trust that it's there, to be able to connect and build those things that seem impossible. This is the time to interweave. This is the time to be speaking out loud about your big, crazy vision, because I promise you there's probably other people out there with the same crazy vision that just are not willing to speak up because they're afraid. It's like that. It's like being in school, and remember when your teacher would always be like, thank you so much for asking that question, because I promise you there were at least 3 or 4 other people in this class that weren't brave enough to ask that question, right? You have to be willing to be compassionately curious. You have to be willing to say, maybe I don't know how to do this. Is it possible that I don't know everything? Is it possible that I do know everything? That I actually have the answers already, and I'm so resistant to hearing the advice and hearing the answer because it's not what I want to hear, right? So let's back up into this for a second. Give you guys like a concrete example. So just talking about how 3 years ago I was depressed and stressed and strapped for cash, and just like you can just see it in my face. My whole demeanor is like hunched over, just very conservative. Um, no real like smile, like everything was literally gray and dull inside. I'll just like share the video later and you guys can see it. It's a huge contrast, right? In the facial structure you can tell it's me, but besides that everything else is just like different. And it's because that was just when I got started. So really knowing that if you're just getting started on telling your story, if you're just getting started on being in your journey of truly expressing to the world that you have a dream on your heart that seems crazy. My impossible dream is that I want to be president of the United States of America. My impossible dream is that I believe with every fiber of my being that I can help to bring our entire planet to a place where no one in the world would suffer from lack of root needs, of the base needs of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that bottom one, your root chakra, that every person would have access to clean water and healthy food and education and medicine from all over the world, all of the different tribes, all the different technologies, all the different medicines that we have connected, compiled together in a massive database so that we could be seeing a decrease in some of these diseases that don't exist in other parts of the world but then run rampant in others. To have shelter, to be able to have education and the access to then choose, right? To then be able to work towards creating something new, to create their impossible dream. We're never going to get to the age of, even in tech, right? You have to be a crazy inventor and a crazy innovator and have this impossible idea in any industry for there to be a massive change. So if you're someone who loves Star Trek, like I was raised a Trekkie, I freaking love it. That's where a huge part of my moral system actually comes from, is Star Trek, ironically. And it really connects into this. There's no need to like be fighting over resources anymore. When are we going to like be able to do the bone, like they break a bone, right? And they just go and it reorganizes the bones. Like if we weren't always at war, if we weren't always fighting each other for oil resources, if we weren't always worrying about our own base needs, how am I going to pay for my kids meals today? How am I going to pay for somewhere to sleep? How am I going to make sure that my children are getting access to education and the kind of education that I want them to have, right? When are we going to start teaching our kids so that they're no longer having to learn what we learned in our 20s and our 30s and our 40s? And some of my clients are in their 50s and in their 60s, and they're trying to reorganize their neural pathways. The older you are, the harder it is to do that because the calcification of the myelin sheath within your neurons. When you're trying to explain to your parents why it is that you've been able to shift and change, or why your ethics don't match theirs or whatever, it doesn't compute. Not because there's something wrong with them or they're dumb or anything. It's literal neuroscience. And we have to remember that the present is always changing the past. Even about how we speak, even in our structure of how we speak, the present always changes the meaning of the past. So you might have a relationship where there's someone who still feels super guilty about all this stuff, and you have forgiven and you have moved on, and there is just nothing but love for them. But until they're willing to do whatever is necessary to rewrite their own story, the past is going to mean that to them. And the same thing is going to mean something totally different to you. And that's okay. You need to know and have the structure of who you are solidly, and that can be something that's impossible, right? Maybe it seems impossible for you to actually own your own ethical moral code despite what others are trying to dictate to you. Maybe it seems impossible for you to say that you're going to go and create a multi-billion-dollar brand in the next 5 years because you know that the idea is that spot on that it doesn't matter how long it takes, it's going to get done. When are you going to realize that your book that you keep saying you're going to write is never going to write its fucking self? So are you willing to do the work necessary to have that happen? Or is it just going to always stay impossible? Is it always going to stay an impossible dream, right? Are you always going to be Don Quixote, or are you going to stand up and really fight the good fight? And do what it takes for you to see the dreams come true, because you know that you were put on this planet to be a leader. You were put on this planet to change the world, to change everything about the way our social structure currently has us enslaved as a working class, as parents, as everything. It's all passed down. Then we get stuck in this blame cycle of, oh, I have this trauma, or in a past life this happened. We're never willing to own the fact that right here, right now, you have the opportunity to have the mindset that none of those stories matter anymore, that you've already done all of that work, right? If you're coming up on a new trauma, this is why the work is really never done, right? And then that actually is its own little thing where people get stuck, oh, well, the shadow work never ends. It's impossible for you to end shadow work. All you do is reframe it and reframe it and reframe it and reframe it until you no longer feel a victim to anything. Ever. There are no victims ever. There's one rule on this planet, which is free agency. You have the free will choice to do anything. Now, if you're conscious of the free will choice, that's one thing, versus if you're unconscious. And most people are walking around unconscious, right? 3 years ago, The Greatest Showman was a huge thing. So if you haven't seen it recently, I suggest you go watch it. I recently was listening to one of the songs and I was dumbfounded. Stumble through your days, got your head hung low. The sky's a shade of gray, a zombie in a maze. You're asleep inside, but you can't shake awake, 'cause you're just a dead man walking, thinking that's your only option. But you can flip the script and brighten up your darkest days. Are you kidding? It's right there in Disney movie. It's right there. And yet everyone was so impressed with the "this is me," and they're saying, "This is me." Who are you, right? Who are you? Like the caterpillar. Where's my cup? The caterpillar. And Alice in Wonderland. I'm always talking about Alice in Wonderland. Wonderland was impossible. This is the impossible place, right? Who are you? Are you going to continue to be the small little caterpillar, the little girl? Different caterpillar now. Different little girl. My analogies run into each other. So let's get some real life situations. What is the impossible dream right now for some of you? Anthony, yes, we'd be working on only how to improve the collective health and well-being of all situation ways. Yeah, exactly, and industries. So this is why I've been going in to companies that are like the underdogs in their industries, and we're starting to rework with these new earth belief systems and the structures of sovereignty, and having the employees be able to be a part of the creative process, and having the CEOs know whether or not they really want to stay in there, because that's a huge part of corporate America. You get so lost in the shuffle and the hustle and the grind that the entrepreneurs and the CEOs aren't able to then move on and create new things. So we're like gridlocked there too, and it's happening in every single industry. So going in there and working from the top down approach and working with the CEO, getting the CEO so fucking solid on who they are, what they are, how they serve, that anything they touch turns to motherfucking gold. And then going into their current project, helping them make that into the structure that then allows them to launch off into the next project. And we're going to start being able to get blood flowing and blood pumping into the collective of those of us already ahead of the game in the consciousness. We're already in the super consciousness, so that we can be the examples that does shake other people awake, right? Us having the same stories over and over and over again, the same cycle, the same trauma. A year ago, I was asking this question. Nothing that you should be able to look at pictures of you from 3 years ago and have like massive cognitive dissonance. If you're playing the game full out, you won't be able to recognize yourself. And then you'll have so much fucking gratitude for that version of you that looks sick, that looks unhealthy, that looks depressed, that has this whole vibration of like, oh, honey, I wish I could just reach in there and give you a fucking hug. And know that that was you. Holy fuck. It gives you so much power and so much drive to then help other people, not by preaching at them, but continuously showing up every day as the biggest, boldest, most audacious version of you, because you know that you can change. You've done it before, you'll do it again. How big are you willing to go? How bright are you willing to be? How impenetrable are your scales? Can you take it from the press? Can you take it from your family? Can you take it from everyone, knowing that your belief system and your core beliefs are so fucking solid that no one is going to shake you, because those are the people that change the world, right? We've been talking a lot about the Marianne Williamson quote, that it is our light, not our dark, that we are most afraid of, that our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate, but that we are actually powerful beyond measure. Right? As dragons, as gods, weaving our own fate, we need to be weird. Weird needs to become the new normal. And what I mean by that is the word weird comes from the Norse word vierde, which means to weave one's fate. So can you stand up and own your weird out loud? Can you own your shame out loud? Can you go into your closet filled with skeletons, pull open that trap door, let Pandora's box out, let chaos and unruly situations be everywhere, not call them shadows, not be a victim to them, not call them all these unconscious blocks, right? Once you get to a point, like, if you're new to those things, you haven't gone through the process of like learning what the unconscious and conscious mind are, understanding how to move through those blockages, or have any basis in that, it's amazing to learn those things. But for those of you who have learned those things and you're still like, but I don't know why I'm not changing my life, it's because you have eddied. You're like in an eddy and you're not moving downriver anymore. It's time for you to shift your frame again, reframe it again. Okay, I am actually creating all of this. I chose every story. I chose every trauma. I chose every heartache. I chose every laughter. And you take that much authority, you can detach from the emotion and then use the energy in motion of the emotions that you had stored in these old stories And now all of a sudden you have access to all this energy and this creative flow happens, and you go off for a weekend that you thought was going to start one way and it ends a totally completely different way that's bigger, brighter, and more in alignment for not only you and the people involved with your deal, but probably thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of other people. This is the earth-shattering work that we came here to do as global luminaries, as dragons, as birthers of reality. This is the reason why I reopened my bespoke dragon invocations, which I haven't offered in like 6 months. I just opened 10 of them because I can feel you in my sphere. I can feel those of you who are ready to be activated and turned up, right? You are already tuned in and you're already tapped in, but your volume is this, and you're not willing to do the work that you have to do to turn up your voice and to get brighter and to get shinier and to be the example of what it's like to have those new earth values of having peace flow through you no matter what's coming at you, to love unconditionally, to know the only way that you receive love from others is to give it and give it and give it, and because you're not even keeping score anymore. You're always in service. You're in service to yourself because you are showing up fearlessly and authentically in every moment of every day, even when you have to have those scary conversations, even when you have to own what your reality is to those people that are never going to understand your reality. It is a part of the process that allows us to remember the truth of who we are as fractals of God, here manifest in form, creating our own story. That is it. That's it. That's what we're doing. And that is a belief structure that I invite you to play with. Okay? I'm not trying to say this is facts among facts among facts. I'm always shifting. I'm always having new belief structures come and question my current ones and tearing down and restructuring. But my background is in structural alignment therapy. I go into bodies, actual physical bodies, and look at you and see where you're twisted and where you're tweaked and do myofascial release and neurofascial unwinding, cranial sacral trigger point, all this injury massage to reorganize your entire structure into the dimensions that are in the most alignment so that your chi is flowing, so your muscles are in alignment, so that you can rearrange from having intense scoliosis or hip dysplasia, like some of the injuries that I've dealt with, aligning them. And I do that on a physical level, and I do that on a business level too, right? In your life, whole life alignment. Go into your marriage life, any part of your life that's out of whack, we go in there and restructure it. That's my coding. That's what I do here on this planet. And I do that through birthing this energy of dragons, this impenetrable, big, audacious, awful dragon. It seems so awful and so heinous. A dragon, oh, they're not cute and cuddly. Right. That, it's like how Alan Watts describes the Zen master. The Zen master is an awful dragon. Here, I have the quote right here. I knew it was going to come up. How did I know? Right here. The Zen master is an extremely authoritarian figure. That's the way he deliberately comes on at the beginning. He puts on a terrific show of being an awful dragon. This screens out all sorts of people that don't have the nerve to get into the work. But once you are in, a very strange change takes place. The master becomes the brother. He becomes the affectionate helper of the students, and they love him like a brother rather than respect him as they would a father. Because of this, the students and masters make jokes about each other. They have a very curious relationship that from the outside looks authoritarian, but everyone on the inside knows it's a joke. Liberated people have to be very cool. It's a quote from an Alan Watts um, speech. And that's me. I love so hard and so unconditionally once you show me that you're willing to go all in, that you are willing to have the relentless focus and discipline of an energetic Olympian. Because I'm not here to play small, so why on earth would I be surrounding myself with other people who play small? Who do you need to be the most impossible version of you? 3 years ago, me had no structure, had no idea what relentless focus was victimized to everything in her life, would never take responsibility, was scared and timid, but she came off as a bitch, right? So then I softened up a little bit, was able to come back into my more maternal space, but I've always had this hardcore, arrogant dragon, a scaly, reptilian type fire about me. That is who I be. I be loud, I be bold, I be opinionated. I am infinite knowledge. I have access to an entire mycelial network of energy through the quantum field in which I can pluck anything out of. And as long as I hold that vision long enough, know that it's birthed. And that because I know that it's birthed, I never stress about it. I don't think about it. It's just done. And as it lines up for me, I continue to build and build and build this impossible vision. Impossible vision. Some housewife from the burbs is going to go change the world and make sure that everyone has access to all of their root needs, to go and end the sex trafficking, to end victimhood, to end the illusion of suffering amongst the entire fucking planet, just because I want to see what happens when you all are free to play. It's not about me. It's about how much fun can we have? How much can we shift the vibration that's out there, the dark and gloomy, head down, zombie, walking into the grave life? And how much can you live? How can you experience life? So, I want to know some impossible dreams from you guys. So, those are you guys who are watching. Since there's like 5 or 6 people watching, what is something that seems impossible to you? And yes, I did switch cups. This had my tea, that one had my hot water. Anybody? Anybody? Let's see. So, an impossible dream might be to create a $100,000 month in your business. I'm going to use one of my previous clients' examples because she talks about this all the time anyway. So, to be able to sign a client in full for $100,000. So, they pay $100,000 all in full. And so at the time, she was only charging $12,000. So she was essentially trying to 10 times the amount of money that she was charging for one client for very close to the same amount of work, which was coaching. It was online coaching and rituals and magic. So a metaphysician who was teaching a lot of the psychic abilities, okay, for businesses and healers and innovators. Very similar to what I do, actually, to be honest. Obviously, I want to be teaching more people how to do what I do because we want to get that into all the industries because that's part of the master plan. So, the way that we restructured her wasn't doing anything to her process specifically. It was allowing her to shine in her process. So, refining your own personal, again, who are you? Are you really willing to own who you are? Visually end anxiety, stress, and fear in the world. Perfect. Virtual. Perfect. Awesome, Anthony. So I'll get to that in just a second. So if you're trying to increase your money, right, your wealth, it's not about how you need to shift specifically to, oh, well, what do I need to add to my package to make it worth that? It's how do you own that what you're already doing is worth that? That you have that much knowledge and that much power, that there are people all over the world who would want to pay you that level of income, and that by you receiving that income into your sphere, you would then be able to either hire team members and be able to take, help in that manner because you're then providing livelihood for others. You'd be able to go and buy some property maybe that helps with another part of your dream. You have a dream that's built out. Now that you're aware that you're the architect of the dream, Now that you've done a synchronicity map all the way back and you're like, holy shit, literally, if I hadn't even been born to the parents that I was born to, and then had this happen and then have that happen all the way through your entire life, you wouldn't be who you are now. So can you then spiral that in the other direction and be like, okay, so if I do this and I have this goal, and then this happens, and then this all fits into the big vision, you have benchmarks of what it is that you're doing and what you're creating. But the rest of it is like, you know what? And that's all I want to really know. I don't need to know how I'm going to create $10 million, right? I can know what I'm going to be doing. I know I'm going to take the terrifying action when it comes in place. I'm going to set up the structure so that it can flow in. And then once it flows in, how am I then using the energy of money in that currency to affect the change by continuing to funnel that money from the old earth paradigms and the old structures and fear-based patriarchy and funnel it into things that are then the more unity consciousness based new earth dynamic, right? Using it as a siphon, creating that rainbow bridge of abundance, moving it from where we see it now that creates so much anger and fear and stress and animosity, right? You want to virtually do that, help to create a place where that can be siphoned, right? You can take the wealth from one side and move it into the new belief structure, and eventually there's going to be so many people on this side that are like, what the hell? Like, there's no money over here anymore. It's like it's total dystopia. Everyone is dealing with Big Brother S stuff. How are we going to flip the script when over here there's total utopia? Everyone's taken care of. Eventually, we'll hit critical mass and everyone will be over. But that's not something that happens overnight. Everyone thinks that the ascension is just going to be like a bam, wham, thank you, ma'am. Like, wake up one day and I'm in the like Oz. That's not it. This is a long game. I might even have to come back another lifetime. No, I'm going to live to be 200. I'll be fine. Right? This is the revolutionaries. These are the global luminaries. So we can see that far into 2020, like 2050, 2100, and know that this is how we started, right? This is where we started. This is us planting the seeds that are going to be continued and move forward. So you want to virtually end anxiety, stress, and fear in the world. So what do you already do? How are you already showing up for that? What are your avenues? Do you have a email list? Do you have a website? Do you have clients that you talk to one-on-one? What is it that you are doing to be able to make that dream happen? And then what does that actually mean to virtually end anxiety, stress, and fear in the world? What does that really mean? Who are you specifically talking to so that you can then branch out, right? I speak to industry leaders or those who wish to be the leaders of their industries but are now still using tactics that, yeah, got them good wealth. They know how to do that, but it's not scalable and it's also not feeding into the new earth paradigm. They really want to jump off. These CEOs want to jump off and be creating new projects, but they don't know how to move away from the project they have because it's actually a really good idea and could be so much more beneficial if there was a better structure. And that really does start with the CEO and then moves into the business and then comes back into the CEO. It's a very micro situation. It's beautiful. And it's just the beginning, right? This is just the beginning of what it is that truly lights me on fire as someone who is a structural alignment integrator, right? Doesn't matter the structure, I'll help you align it and integrate it into your life for the highest possible good of all beings. But that seems impossible, right? To be the impossible, you have to think it and breathe it every day. Say it out loud. This is who I am. This is what I am. This is how I serve. And show up that way in all areas of your life. You show up in all areas of your life that way by really claiming that this is who you are, right? They interplay. This isn't how to live the impossible dream. Like, this isn't a how-to video. This is being the impossible. Are you willing to be the impossible? Are you willing to be the change you want to see in the world? Are you willing to be the person who does whatever it takes, no matter what, to create that change in the world? By shifting your own belief systems and your own stories in your own current spaces that you feel victimized or that you don't feel powerful or that you feel that there's a trauma and a story still there. And then detach from that, detach from your history, and know that you are the author of this story. You are the one who decided every single thing that has ever happened to you ever. Can you play with that belief system and see where that leads you? The rabbit hole isn't really the worst place to fall right now with everything else going around. What if you could live and actually take advantage of all that life has to offer instead of playing small and staying hidden and staying safe within the confines of a structure that you don't even really believe in? Yeah, you want it to be better, but who are you to change the world? It's not, who are you not to? You're a fractal of God manifested in form. You should be changing the world. It's what you were put on this planet to do. So, with that, I love you all. Thank you so much for showing up on Sunday to hang out with me. Remember, there are 10 spots for the Bespoke Dragon Invocations. Let me know if you're interested in that. It's a whole survey really moving you through your ascension symptoms, stepping you into your power positions, and helping you own your ability to be that impenetrable dragon that bursts realities into existence. Also, if you're a CEO, entrepreneur, you're interested in anything that I was talking about that we're doing with the business is right now, make sure you reach out for that too. So we're really amping up for 2021. So many beautiful, blissful, like it's the best year ever. Stand up and claim it as the best year ever and stand up and go be the impossible version of you. See what that feels like just for a day. Just for a day. Okay. I love you.